Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you have a wonderful refreshment and networking session. It's now time for our first panel session of the day. Innovation and Leadership, Discerning New Horizons. We are privileged to have a remarkable moderator who brings a wealth of expertise and experience to guide the discussion. Hyder is a charisma coach, a corporate trainer, author, and the director of the High Flyer Nation. As a specialist in charisma, he empowers high-performing leaders to command influence, respect, and charisma on stage. His extensive experience includes training over 5,000 individuals across multiple countries, including TEDx speakers, conference presenters, leaders, and entrepreneurs. Hyder's contribution to the field of competitive speaking have earned him over 50 awards and accolades, further solidifying his status as the authority in his domain. His insights and guidance will undoubtedly enrich our exploration of innovation and leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Hyder.
Distinguished guests of honor, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Hyder and I'm really proud and excited to be your first moderator for the first panel for the Executive Leadership Seminar, Innovation and Leadership, Discerning New Horizons. So for this panel, we're going to be discussing how do we inculcate a culture of innovation here in our organizations and take our organizations and ourselves as leaders to the next level. Now, before we begin, of course, I would like to introduce my distinguished panelists here today. We are going to start with, of course, somebody who we are very familiar with. She has spoken earlier today. She is a strategy and innovation process facilitator, six-time entrepreneur and leader with 20 years of business growth experience in the technology, consulting, and executive education domains. Her executive doctoral research on super apps strategy, innovation, and governance has been featured in UNESCO, SAGE, and the Platform Lab. Now, fun for her is organizing conferences such as this one, writing poetry, and also improv acting. Let's welcome the founder of Chrysalis Institute of Being, Dr. Roslina Chai. Now, our next panelist has over a decade's experience in the financial services industry, specifically in financial planning, wealth management, as well as the FMCG industry before starting with his organization, microLEAP. He sits on the board of multiple committees, the FinTech Association of Malaysia, Securities Commission Recognized Digital Market Operator Association, as well as the Sunway University College Academic and Investment Advisory Board. Now, he shares the same birthday as Sir Alex Ferguson and Sir Anthony Hopkins. Do you know which day it is? It's actually New Year's Eve, right? So let's welcome and give a New Year welcome to the Chief Operating Officer of microLEAP PLT, Melvin Fernandez. Our next panelist is the Happiness Chief and co-founder of Advantage, a fund management company that also provides infrastructure for those who want to set up hedge funds. He's been in the investment management for 18 years and has worked at Lion Global Investors and other asset management firms. He's passionate about topics such as how to make decisions when you don't have all the information you need, or anything to do with Warren Buffett. Now, he told me that he has 5 pairs of spectacles but unfortunately only one pair of eyes. And I think we can all clearly see him. Let's give a warm welcome to Melvin Tan. And of course, last but not least, the final panelist is the Assistant Honorary Secretary for the Association of Small and Medium Enterprises, ASME. As a consultant, he helps business leaders who have dominated their primary niche markets to pivot and open new markets. He's also an expert in integrating neuro-linguistic programming principles to amplify the positioning, branding, and marketing of his clients' brand vehicles and supercharge their growth. Now, he told me that he has a personal library of over 400 books. And that is actually 5 more than that I already have. Let's welcome the founder of Monarch Advisory, Vernon Lim. All right, now without further delay, let's get the show on the road. Panelists, how are you feeling today? Great. Okay. Now, let's start with this topic, innovation. Right? Now, innovation, it has become somewhat of a buzzword, right? Somewhat of a buzzword, and every leader, every organization, every conference you hear, so much so, this word innovation has become overused time and time again, to the point where, even according to Wired, the discussion has become circular. To be innovative, we have to encourage more innovation. Right? And I think the irony here is we're even discussing it as part of the very first panel here in today's event. So I want to open up the discussion today by asking all our distinguished panelists here, this word, innovation, it has become so overused. So what do you think is real innovation? What do you think is real innovation? Let's start with Vernon.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Vernon, and thank you, Hyder, for the very kind introduction. What is true innovation? To respond to that question is like asking what is true love. Can we really answer it in 5 minutes or in 10 minutes or on a stage, right, in this kind of setting?
That's why we have an hour.
So, it's like, what is true love, right? And I will put it into context from a Toastmasters perspective, since many of us here are from Toastmasters and have a public speaking background, is that asking what is a good speech? How can we answer the question, what is a good speech? There are many, there are wrong answers, but there are many right answers as well of what is a good speech. Same thing as well, what is true love? There are some wrong answers, but there are also many correct answers, so what is true love? So for innovation, for me, myself, and my background, we do innovative strategy work. We do work where we build up new brands, new companies, new products. We give direction, we find product market fit. We try to think of new ways to create value for stakeholders. So if you ask me, my interpretation of true love, my interpretation of what is a good speech, right, and what is innovation in my standpoint, I would say that innovation is about finding new ways to create value for stakeholders intentionally. Okay, and one of my favorite contrasting statements for innovation is if you do it, it's an innovation, and if your competitor does it, it's a disruption. So yeah, there's another one, right? When it happens to other people, it's a recession. When you lose your job, it's a depression. When your friend loses his job, it's a recession, right? So it's all perspective. So for me, very simple. Innovation is all about finding new ways to create value for your stakeholders intentionally, right? That's me. So yeah, anybody wanna? We just go loud. We are Singaporean, right? So we just go systematically,
Yes.
one after the other, okay? That is not very innovative, but it's okay. It's predictable.
We'll try to shake it up as we go along. Let's go in a single file for now.
Hi, fantastic, fabulous Friday morning. Glad that you all are wide awake. Innovation, I think there are generally two categories of innovation. There's the Peter Thiel, he's the founder, co-founder of PayPal with Elon Musk and a whole other bunch of entrepreneurs, where he defines it as 0 to 1. It never happened before. You've solved the problem, you created one. Example, eBay, I think, and PayPal, payment via email. There was a problem. How do you pay with an email address? They managed to solve that problem and meet regulatory requirements. SpaceX, problem is what? Too expensive to send rockets to space, reusable rockets. How do you compete with NASA with an unlimited budget? 0 to 1. And then, Peter Thiel also invested in a lot of businesses, things like Facebook. He was one of the, so moving from one to many, one to n, how do you scale that problem? So that is one type of innovation. The truth be told, it's tough to find these type of firms here. Not many, very rare, but there are out there. The 0 to 1, really, truly breathtaking and really innovative solutions to problems. The other type of innovation, which I think more of us can relate to, is the incremental value add or that you do. Just take Microsoft or SIA, for example. You go to a typical, a European airline or American airline, when they serve you food, take, drink, You go to SIA, good morning, Mr. Tan. Would you like chocolate A, B, or C? Do you want caramel flavor or do you want champagne flavor chocolate? They remember your name. They remember your preferences. Sometimes they do. And they spend time talking to you. How do you innovate? By doing that. How do you train all your staff to do that? It's not easy. You have hundreds of people flying everywhere. How do you maintain certain standards? That is innovation. Microsoft never invented the operating system. Neither did they invent Microsoft Office, Excel, Word. Who here remembers Word Perfect? Who here is young? Wow, okay, I thought I'm the only one. Who here remembered Lotus 123? All right, good. I'm not in the only one in the room.
I wasn't born yet, I think.
You weren't born? Hey, are you sure? I'll check your ID. Yeah. But these software, Word, the equivalent of Word and Excel came way before Microsoft came out with the equivalent of Word and Excel. Today, we don't hear these names anymore. Incremental innovation. They didn't invent it. It wasn't a 0 to 1, but they brought from 1 to many. Why? They were able to do it cheaper, faster, more readily available than their competitors. Sometimes they bought up their competitors. Sometimes they copied their competitors and innovated accordingly. Similar problem with Microsoft now and OpenAI. Did they invent OpenAI? No. But they bet on it early on. Today, what's Copilot built on? OpenAI. And of course, other tools. So you don't have to be the first, you don't have to be the one to create from 0 to 1, but you can bring it from 1 to many. So that is a second level of innovation. And it could come through incremental process improvement, training your staff, SIA, and copying and doing it better, faster, cheaper than your competitors. So that's, to me, a second level of innovation. No right or wrong, you can make money either way. So, yep, I'll pass it on to Matthew.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I think I'd like to add to what Vernon and also Melvin rightly pointed out. The main thing for me also is actually what people should be looking at is actually value market fit, right? Instead of just product market fit, let me just test it here and there. No, let's see what you can actually change, right? I mean, I think it's so well said when you say 0 to 1, 1 to many. It's such a brilliant concept and it's easy to understand, and that's exactly what it should be. Right? I mean, for us, we actually do some form of trying to see what we wanted to do from day one, because at least for speaking on P2P, the industry as a whole, that's how it came about. You could say it was to disrupt the banking industry, but not really. It was just to serve the underserved, because there will be quite a lot of these huge attrition of the MSMEs, not just in Malaysia, but ASEAN. ASEAN's funding gap is huge. It's about over 3 billion. So US dollars. So it was, and this is just, I'm talking about Singapore, Malaysia, it's quite a substantial amount. So actually, sorry, 31 billion, not 3 billion. But anyway, the point I was making was that, it's good to look at what you can do and how you can make that changes. Again, incrementally is actually a good way of putting it. Basically, we looked at social financing as one option. That's something that we're really looking forward to launching soon. But when we first started, it was the Grameen model, the digitizing the Grameen model, as well as because this going round and round, womanpreneurs right away are the only ones you can trust. There's hard data to prove that. What's it called? Professor Muhammad Yunus was right, because we did have a nice breakfast session with him. So basically, when we did that digitization of the Grameen model to start with, and then later on improved on getting certain, I guess, again, it's literally trying to get from the start to where you are now, right? So basically when there was no options for these MSMEs to do everything online, that was the first thing we did, and absorb the Islamic cost, few things. But other than that, it's always looking to see what value you can bring to the market. So that's, for me, the real innovation, value market fit.
Oh,
Mike.
yes. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. Don't worry, I'll do it very short. I think, first of all, it's important not to be too obsessed with whether something is real or not. And unless you're in the business of winning a popularity contest, for those of you in this room who are working for a company, you only really have one responsibility. Whatever it is that you do, you have to contribute to the value creation that the company is offering the market. That's fundamental. Without that, there's no need to talk about anything. And there are 5 elements that if you tick off every single one, I think you can pat yourself on the back and say, I think I'm doing innovation. The first one, you must be solving a problem. If there's no problem, then you're just having fun creating, which is also fine, right? There are a lot of companies like 3M, like Google, the famous 3%, 10% time, and some of them lead to innovation. But you have to distinguish between I'm just having fun coming out with stuff, creating, versus innovation, because innovation, I'm solving a specific problem that I see in the market, and that has to be contextualized in the market, that competition is also trying to solve. But I can do it in a way that is very difficult for competition to copy. And it has to contribute value. Let's be clear what value is. You're either increasing your top line or you're decreasing your cost, right? This is the only way a business can create, let's call it financial value. And you have to do it as a team. If you're doing it by yourself, debatable whether you can call it innovation. And it must be, and this is the part that when I'm doing consulting, it's so obvious, but it's surprising how often it's missed. It must be aligned to the company's strategy. Otherwise, what are you doing it for? So those 5 elements, there has to be a problem. It must be something your competition is doing and you're doing better. It has to create value, do it as a team, and it's aligned with the strategy. And there are many areas in the company that you can innovate on. It's not just product. We're very obsessed with product innovation. There are 10 core elements that if you don't do these 12 elements, you can't call yourself a company. For example, a company must have product. A company must have production capacity, however you define production capacity. A company must have a client. A company must have market, right? I can go on, but there are essentially 10. So when you think about innovation, you hit those 5 things, then you have to start looking at along the 10 points of my value creation, I can innovate in either one of this. For those who are interested, Nespresso is a classic, beautiful, albeit 30 years long, case study in innovation across all 10 points of their value chain creation. I'm done. Yeah. Like I said, I can talk so much about this, but I'm not. Yes.
Yes, Vernon, go ahead.
Yeah, really good. Every time we had thanks, Dr. Roslina. I really like when I engage with other speakers who have a framework. Whenever they have 5 points or 10 points, right, it's really exciting because it means that the speaker has really thought it through, right? So I would like to ask, because there's this word that really stands out, which is value, right? So we all can agree that innovation has to produce value. And not just innovation, all of us, for us to be relevant and of value in society, we have to create value. But maybe I just want to ask, what is your understanding of value? Because you mentioned financial value, and it's defined here as top line. Moving the top line or reducing your costs is financial value. What about value with a capital V, right? So how do you help us to frame our thinking? So I want to create value for people because we are part of organizations that have no financial top line or bottom line, right? So there are specific scenarios where we create value for people, but it is not bottom line or top line oriented in certain situations, right? I'm sure, because not all organizations are financial organizations. There are some organizations that are not financial organizations. So to answer the questions, because innovative strategy in leadership, and Toastmasters, for example, is in leadership organization, and not all leadership is in business settings, right? We have leadership in a Girl Guides camp or something like that, which is not business orientated. How do we understand what is value? Maybe I'll ask. Then after that, anybody want to take a shot at that?
Okay. I think I'll do this very simply and shortly, but because it's so simple, it's going to be frustrating. And I'm going to put my lawyer's hat on. Number one, if you are incorporated as a private limited company, right? If you're listed on the stock market, legally you have an obligation to return a specific type of value that is over and beyond all the wonderful things you can say about sustainability. So let's be honest, how you incorporate your company determines what you can do, okay? Now, if you're not one of these companies that is legally obligated to return financially to your stakeholders and shareholders, then I think there is a lot more room to have that conversation. Please do not misquote me. I am not saying that just because you're listed, you have carte blanche to do whatever you like because your primary responsibility is to your shareholders, which, by the way, please go read Milton Friedman, because that's not exactly what he said. It's just the way he's been quoted, which is different, right? There is, and if I understand your question correctly, a real urgent need to not be so obsessed with money, right? I don't think we have been creative and imaginative enough. If you look at one of the things that I know a lot of family offices are trying to do is to borrow principles from permaculture to talk about not just financial currency, social currency, spiritual currency. How do we come together, dismantle the accounting system? Because aside from law, which is holding all of us a little bit prisoner to what we can do, is also our accounting system, right? If you look at the liability column, what is in the liability column that shouldn't be there? In my opinion, people shouldn't be in liability column, but we are. I mean, it's so obvious, but who's actually making changes to that? Please, somebody do something, right?
Okay, but I think to add to that, it's got to look at also, social return on investments. Like that's something that we were, again, coming to exactly your point. Like the companies in line, ourselves, we've been waiting to launch this. And also it starts from the top because we're regulated under Securities Commission, but I think hopefully this is a across the board thing where they're actually saying, look, you guys have to start doing ESG tracking. And we wanted to do it another level and actually go down to actually trying to do a donation base and as well part under regulatory governance, but part just having the people to give the money and put money only once and then we keep track. So basically we're looking at not just whether the business is doing well, but whether they can afford healthcare for their kids. whether the employees are actually benefiting, etc., etc., etc. So again, social return on investments, the framework's actually from Social Value International. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of them. So SVI and SVM, which is the Malaysian chapter, is the people that are working with my regulators and working with us. And I think that's, I mean, again, that's on the microLEAP side, but I think overall, it has to start also, it will always help if it came from the top as well. You know, I mean, if the governance is already there from the start saying, hey guys, it's time for you to look at things a bit differently. I mean, of course, banks, they have no choice if MAS or BNM for Malaysia says A is A. It's the same thing for us. If SC says jump, you say how high. But at the same time, the good thing is, I think it's always good if they are also kind of like spearheading or at least initiating us to also do our side. You know, because I think it's like hit the nail on the head as usual, is that it's about not just looking at the dollar and cent, but also on what you can do overall, right? I mean, how else can you improve, say, the MSME's livelihood, etc., etc. I mean, that's on my 2 cents.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are a lot of non-profits that add value to society. I mean, Toastmasters is an example. How many leaders have been trained to speak? Religious organization, what's the role of a church or temple? Or, I mean, you talk about religious organization. How do they keep the youths engaged out of the streets, out of trouble, in society, positively engaged? That NGOs, like what you said, yeah. Even things like microfinance, like what Matthew has mentioned. Yes, there's a profit and loss element, but there is a social empowerment angle. You fund women who are underserved, who have lack of ability to borrow from a bank, for example, to start their first small textile retail shop or their own provision shop. Without the initial capital, that first $1,000, they can't buy any goods to sell to support their family. And we see this all over ASEAN. There's a big funding gap, like what Matthew mentioned. And the banks do not want to lend to these underserved minorities, even sometimes. But yet they are hardworking. They look after their family. They provide for their family. Make sure their young girls and their young boys go to school with whatever they earn. So this lending to this group is a positive change to society, and it does add value. Of course, it may not come in the profit and loss. Similarly, like Toastmasters or even religious organizations, you can't measure it by how much donations we get, but how much impact you have on society. And at the end of the day, is society better off with your existence and what you have done? If not, then what have you contributed to society? That's the question you have to ask.
Can I, just chuchel a bit and be provocative? Because I don't know if we've noticed our answers to your question, Vernon, about value. And this is a challenge. If we really want to reimagine value, then we need innovation, coming back to the point of this panel, in legal and accounting and civic. Because everything we talk about still is about money. If the way that we flourish in this world depends on how much money we have or we don't have, then it is money. Let's just be honest about it, right? There's no innovation in legal or accounting or civic. We're still talking about money. All innovation is justified on money. Is it not?
Thoughts?
Yeah, wow, this is, when Melvin was talking about the different kind of organizations, they just, the organization that I actually, that popped up in my head was family, Our families are organizations, and there is value creation in families. I mean, your mom is doing some value creation to you, your dad is doing some value creation, your siblings too, and so on. It's organization, so there's value. So when I was thinking about value, because we cannot really talk about innovation in all its many definitions if we don't get alignment on what is value, because innovation produces value. So I would like to share how I understand value. I use this to think through my interactions with the ecosystem and the community at large. For me, value can be created, can be destroyed, can be extended, can be reduced, and value is subjective. This is the 5 characteristics of value. It can be created, it can be destroyed, you can extend it, you can reduce it, and it's subjective, right? So if you have a cup of coffee, I drop something in the cup of coffee, I have just reduced the value of the coffee, okay? Unless it's sugar, okay? So if I look at these 5 characteristics, I only can conclude that value is about creating experiences. Value, in effect, is an experience. So when we create value for people, in my mind, we are trying to create experiences that people want. If we can create experiences that people want, there is value that's being created. And with this value that's being created, we can put it through a business, put it through a machinery, put it through an organization, put it through the legal system and accounting system, and then convert that value into capital. So capital got 3 kinds: economic capital, social capital, and cultural capital, right? So you can convert value into capital because capital is a store of value, right? So whenever I am thinking about business, whenever I'm doing my job, whenever I'm preparing a speech, preparing for a panel, coming for the panel, in my mind, I'm thinking about what can I do to give people an experience that they want. And that is value. Now, whether or not I make money off it, whether I collect it in Bitcoin, whether I get a ang pao for it, or whether I get a cake for it, this is just the machinery of the value creation, right? So so that's what I want to communicate, which is my understanding of value, and I hope this framework kind of adds value to everybody here today. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else would like to add on to the value that Vernon has created so far?
Hey, Vernon, I have a question now. I really
Ask.
like your value destruction, reduction, extension. That was really cool.
Thank you.
Do you have
Thank
any
you.
ideas how we can convert it into other types of capital aside from social capital? Because the example you mentioned, family, that was also very good. But as the only woman on this panel, okay,
We noticed.
I am gender blind. I did not notice.
Good. We'll talk about DEI later, okay?
yeah. I'm not convinced that the value I create for my family is converted into any kind of capital that is value because it's not financial capital.
Wow, this is very provocative question. Hyder, you want to answer this question? Okay.
This is not about
We can go
individuals.
there.
I'm
Okay.
curious.
So let me frame the question first, right? So you are saying that you feel that the value that you create for your family is not valuable because it doesn't translate to financial capital. Is that your question?
It's not recognized, and in some ways, I feel like I've also been punished for having made certain decision to value social value over financial value.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, this is very good. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a minefield kind of question, so I need to change my sitting position.
Yes.
Tread lightly.
I need to, because there is this fight and flight and fawn just now, right? So we need to change our position. Hey, I'm paying attention, guys. So number one, value is about creating the experience that people want, okay? So I didn't go into a bit detail, but since Dr. Roslina decided to go a bit deeper, I shall unpack this. There are 3 kinds of experiences. Not every, okay? So for example, going to prison is an experience. But if I offer to send you to prison, you wouldn't necessarily call it a valuable experience. Of course, it can change your life, sure. But it might not be the experience that you want. So there are 3 kinds of experience. One, experience that you want, which is of course positive experience. The other one, there is an experience that you need. And the experience of removing your fear. So let me explain, okay? There are 3 kinds of experience. One, I give you something that you want. So I want, let's say I want a Tesla car, right? So you give me a Tesla car, that's value. Number 2 is something that I need. So I'm really very thirsty, I need a drink. It's a need. If you don't give me the drink or don't give me the food, I will die from it, okay?
I think I say you're going to punch. But
Yeah,
okay.
so there's 2. There's you really need, okay, if you die from it. The other one is something you want. So I want a Tesla, I want a first class to Europe, whatever. So that's what you want. And the third one is the removal of fear. If I remove fear from you, I create value. So for example, if you are concerned that your child will not do well in school, and I come along and says, don't worry, I'm very credible tutor, I can teach your child, and your child will get straight A's for the exam, this is my track record, and if he doesn't get straight A's, I'll refund you all your money. You will pay me any amount of money, basically, right? Because I take away the uncertainty. I say I'll guarantee you and stuff like that. So when you remove fear, when you give people what they want, and you give people what they need, you create value, okay? So that's why when you said that as a mother, in your family, be more specific, in your family, because family is bigger than mother, you are also a daughter, you're also a sister, so we talk about family infrastructure. If you say that as a family, you are not recognized for the value that you bring to the table as a mother, daughter, a wife, because it doesn't doesn't translate to financial capital, I would say that it is a cultural conversation for the family. It is a contextual conversation in the society. It is a dynamics within a larger community. So in there, of course, there are some societies that really value mothers. There are certain communities in Singapore where the husband works and is very wealthy, and the mother's job is to raise 4 children who happen to be 4 daughters, and to raise them all very well and all well-developed human beings, because for certain types of configurations, it's important to have children that are well-formed and valuable members of society, because they're going to be inheriting a lot of wealth and they're going to manage it, for example, right? Or if the families are not very socially mobile, then it's also very important to raise the children in a particular way so that they are able to become socially mobile. So to say that whether or not it's financial capital or not, I would argue that it is a longitudinal perspective on the impact. I would not say, I think everybody here would agree, that mothers are important to families. I don't think anybody here would disagree or dispute that mothers create value for families, right? They do. But if the statement is that if you make certain decisions as a female in a family context to do particular prioritization, then I would say that it is within the context of a society and how it allows or prioritizes it. So it's very tricky for me, it's very tricky to say that, we frown upon this or we do not frown upon that. It really depends on the immediate caregivers and the immediate stakeholders, right? If you happen to, for example, marry a wife who don't want to have children, and I marry a wife and don't want to have children, I also don't want to have children, then there's no frown upon us anywhere, right? Because we don't have it. It's not part of our agenda. So that's why I want to circle back to Dr. Rosanna's point, right? Your innovation must be aligned to your company strategy, right? So, so if the family strategy is to not have children, then it will be a different dynamics, right? The innovation is different, right? But if you are supposed to, if you desire to have family, and not just have family, but to have a full-time caregiver to the family, right? Then you will have another set. Then the husband will be incredibly appreciative of the wife who has given up her career or so on and so forth to care for her family. Because that is a company strategy in this case. Not company, sorry, organizational strategy. So I don't know if I'm on the right track responding to your question. I think it's very tricky. So but okay. Any other men want to weigh in this?
Actually, your underlying question is what are your values? Simple as that. Is it monetary? Is it spiritual? Is it contributing to society? Is it helping your family or your organization be a better you, a better organization at the end of the day? So, I mean, different people have different values. Some people value money very, very highly, others don't. And the challenge is for all of us is not just only value one dimension, which is money. You should value based on other dimensions in life. Yeah, there's more to it than financial. Yeah, you can't bring all your money to your grave. That's reality.
Yeah, I think I'll just wrap it up by saying it's the intangibles and intrinsic value is what should be accounted for as well. So that's basically it.
All right.
just wrap up your last point here.
So it is important to note, ladies and gentlemen, because we're talking about values and money, value, not values, right? Value is value system. You know, we the people of Singapore, you know, that's the values, right? It's very important to understand. Whenever we look at financial, right, we are actually a bit biased because we are living in a country like Singapore. So all my my counterparts in other countries always say this: Singapore is an unreal country. You know, the traffic light works. You know, when you travel overseas, things cost less. It's unreal. Other people travel overseas, things cost more, right? So it's an unreal country. So when we look at value, look at financial returns, look at what is considered comfortable, it's a little bit kind of biased. So in different contexts and situations, there are more things that are important other than money, of course, like health, like relationship and so on. But it is important to understand also that in a context where things are increasing in cost and so on and so forth, it is important, imperative in right now for us to create economic value right now, this moment. So for sustainability and for all these new innovations in this space, it has to be a supplement to its economic value. It cannot be in replacement. I to say, people are not going to buy your drink just because it's zero carbon footprint and if your drink doesn't taste nice and it's more expensive than the other guy. It's an extra correct direction, but it is not enough. Yeah, that's my point. Thanks.
Okay. Any final points on this? Okay, I think that was a mic drop moment. All right, so I just wanna bring it back into something a little bit more tangible for us to discuss here today, right? So I want to ask the panelists here, when it comes to innovation, right? So we talk about value a lot. When it comes to innovation, what are some challenges? What are some challenges that you've personally experienced, you know, as experts in your fields, trying to bring about innovation in your various organizations? Perhaps we can start with maybe Melvin. Yeah.
I think the challenge is just like change management. Whenever you want to instill change or you want to encourage innovation, people are resistant. It happens everywhere. The bigger the organization, the more resistant it is usually. So that's usually one of the challenge. The other challenge is the challenge of busyness and priorities. You're busy running your business or running your section or your division or your department, and you are just busy running the operations. It could be a bank, it could be a financial institute, it could be an insurance firm, and you don't have time to take a pause to think. So as leaders, if you want to instill some innovation, you need to give the staff time. You need to free up time and resource. Google has a 10-20% rule where they allow their staff 20% to do something else unrelated to their work. Next, it all starts with leadership. The leaders need to allow failure. The minute you try new things, you experiment, you have to allow some form of failure and yet not deplete all the resources that your business, your division, your department has. So that is another challenge. So I guess you need to allow them to experiment, encourage failure, and then recover and learn from it. And over time, you will be able to try something different and innovate. Yeah, it could be a process innovation, it could be better training, it could be better communication, better marketing, or better service to clients. So that is, I think, the essence of it. Yeah.
Okay, for me, I think the main part, again, I think to touch on what Melvin also said, was the incremental innovation. I think that was also a thing, is just as important. Also, again, I think if you're in a regulated space, then the regulatory body, that also can always be a frictional relationship. To put it lightly, but also it's always have to take in mind, I guess, especially on innovation angle, it's on the acceptance and adaptability. You know, I mean, they have to look at it and go, okay, I can see where the company's MO is, you know, where you guys want to go, and then they have to buy into it. You know, so that's also, again, it is a challenge, but technically, if you get at least management, sales, marketing, operations, i.e. the organization as a whole, to look in one direction. A good example also could be IKEA, because I know that they were the first to go top to bottom. Everybody has to adopt the ESG stance. The entire fleet is now pushing to electric vehicles. Likewise, even in Malaysia, I'm not sure about Singapore, but basically in Malaysia, they're going to switch everything to EVs. And not just, I mean, obviously in Europe, the thing is already done, but they're putting it IKEA worldwide to be like that. So that's the kind of thing that, if you get everybody going on one direction, that'd be great. But at the same time, you should still allow people to voice their opinion as well, because sometimes they could, especially maybe fresh employees, they could probably have fresh eyes. So maybe they can give you some different perspective as well. But that's me.
So I'm going to highlight one extremely common, everyone makes this mistake, and that is timing. I made this mistake with my second company, Formula One Technology. We were so sophisticated in our technology, we were too early for the market, we were dead pioneers. In hindsight, I would much rather have been a successful second than a dead pioneer. And timing is not just about sensing when is the market ripe for your, let's call it innovation. It's also how deep of a pocket you have. Because if you don't have cash runway, whatever innovation you have, you may not have the luxury of waiting for the market to be right. So this is not an easy thing to do. It is both an art and a science. But it's not just how much runway I have, it's also how much appetite you have to wait. How long did it take Google to become profitable? And this, I ask this question specifically because when I say wait, most of my clients wait for what? They say, up to you, what are you waiting for? Most people only think about profit when they think about the go-to-market strategy. My suggestion is think a little bit bigger. Now, it's difficult if you are not running a company where you can be in a leadership position for 20 years. If you have to change every 3 years, most likely you're not that committed, to be honest, to any innovation strategy that is disruptive and transformative, because those things take decades, not years, guys, okay? And as a leader, you have a responsibility, if you believe that what you're doing is of service to this world, to protect the innovation for as long as you want. Nespresso, 3 CEOs, it took 3 CEOs, and at every 3 to 5 years, CEOs want to kill the project. But look at what espresso is now, because they were not profitable. They could not figure out the business model for more than 20 years. Now we celebrate them, but it's messy. Innovation is messy. And the second biggest challenge is, for goodness sake, don't try to, if you guys haven't checked it out, you can Google this, but not now, perplexity.ai. Yeah, you know, right? Oh, very cool, very cool. And I love this young CEO founder. They just raised 67.2 or 4 million from SoftBank. He said, so he came from Google. You never try to beat the top in the industry at their own game. If you can, and you really want to innovate, create your own sandbox in terms of strategy. Don't try to play by other people's game. Unless you have 100 million from your great-grandfather's, heritage fund or something, most of us don't have that luxury. So those are the 2 things I will point out are the most serious challenges that you have to pay attention to as a leader who wants to innovate.
100 million also not enough.
Wow. Okay,
if you want to play until the kind of level, right? I want to respond in two fronts. First front is obstacles to innovation. The cliche answer is that it is mindset, right? That's a cliche answer. But the way I will respond to the way I will interpret the cliche answer of mindset is rebranding. So innovation is doing new things in different ways. Okay, we agree this. I mean, broadly we can agree in that. But which means that we will fail. But as long as we call failure, failure has a very bad branding, right? So recently, Jensen Huang is really very hot right now talking about, grit and failure and suffering and pain, right? So I'm a big fan of his these days, right? Because he has framed it well. Because he goes around and wish suffering and pain on people, right? Because that is what builds character and grit. So character and grit is a prerequisite for stamina to do innovation. While I fully agree you need money to do so, my perspective is that it begins before the money. The person needs to have the grit and the 400 door knocks, the shark tanks and whatever to pull off the fundraising component and to get the thing. I mean, if you talk to 50 people and they all say no and you decided to give up, then of course, unlikely to be successful even at the cash acquisition, even at the cash position state, right? So firstly, I think that we definitely have to rebrand failure, right? We all have to rebrand failure. So when something is unsuccessful, you have to look at it as so cliche, right? This is what this is the Thomas Edison one. This is the 1,000 ways.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the one? That's the one, right?
Not to do something.
Yeah. So it's
yes.
not failure, guys. It is not failure. It is a discovery. It is a learning. It is an experimentation. It is a collecting of data. It is a character building. Reiterations, whatever, right? Because I studied business model canvas after from this Japanese professor that came to Singapore. They did this thing. I went for this 3-day course, won some competition, went to represent Singapore in this ASEAN, something like that. This Japanese guy is so out of the world, okay? He's this old gentleman, and we were doing it at NTU, Nanyang Technological University, which was my school. Then we went for lunch, and he went to join the canteen to buy lunch. It took him half an hour to buy his lunch. He was perspiring all the way through. He queued for 20 minutes, reached the counter, and then the auntie at the counter said, you need to get an NTU card to buy something. So he went back to this kiosk, got the NTU card, cashed the value in, went back in, queue again, bought the food and came down. Now, when this Japanese guy sat down in front of me, he said, wow, Vernon, buying food in this school is a character building exercise. I was so amazed because this guy's frame, and he's an innovator, right? He has produced many innovations and stuff like that. The way he saw frustration was completely different. So my first point, we need to rebrand failure. Okay, the first point. So the second point, right, is that the obstacle to innovation is leadership. Okay, because I fully agree, if you want to do something of value, you need to work through a team. And the inability to communicate your vision, and you communicate frustration, you communicate anger, you communicate disappointment, all these negative vibes, as what the Gen Z will call it these days. Negative vibes, right? I mean, we don't understand this word vibe, okay? Yeah, but these vibes, right? It's not the right vibe. It's not an innovative vibe, okay? We need an innovative vibe here, and we need so to the point is leadership, which is influence the right things, and of course rebrand failure, see failure for what it truly is, which is the endless process of evolution, which is humanity's ultimate purpose. There is no greater force in the universe than evolution. Evolution is a force that will never stop. It will continue to change. We are all part of the process, either as its driver or its fodder. So as long as we embrace evolution, we have the mindset of evolving forward, we leverage on leadership and communication, we create the right kind of vibe. And the right way to create the right kind of vibe is to start with the rebranding of failure. If you can rebrand the failure correctly, you will have the correct hero's journey. All right, so I'll end with last line. If you fail in something and you give up, you will be a failure in it forever. But if you fail in something and you keep trying and you keep trying, and you try 100 times, and then you make it 101 time, the 100 failures you have, they all get rebranded as part of your journey. So you actually define your success, no one else, right? So I hope that's a good response. Thanks.
Yes. All right, so I'm just going to summarize what the four of you have just mentioned about challenges in innovation. So we started with Melvin. Melvin, you mentioned resistance to change, right? Of course, different businesses have different priorities, so leaders need to allow for failure and allow experimentation. Matthew, you mentioned friction with regulatory bodies, right? Acceptance and adoptability. And of course, getting everybody to move in one direction. So that's really, really important in terms of alignment. I think Roslina mentioned that as well. Roslina also mentioned timing, right? The value of timing. And it's not just about sensing market conditions, but it's also about funding, right? And also your appetite to wait. So pardon me if I misquoted you. You said, don't try to be the top.
Don't be a dead pioneer.
Don't be a dead
successful
pioneer.
second.
All right, be a living pioneer. Successful living pioneer. All right, okay, create your own sandbox, right? And
Yeah.
Vernon also mentioned mindset, lack of grit, and we need to rebrand failure, right? And it's also a component of leadership and influence. Now, we're running almost out of time. We have about 2 minutes left. So I just want to run through with the four of you and ask each and every one of you, what is one thing? What is one advice you have for us as leaders on how we can inculcate this culture of innovation, instill this culture of innovation in all our organizations? What is one big advice you have for all of us? Okay, anyone can start? Melvin, go ahead.
Think big and keep failing.
Okay, mine would be develop a reading habit. Okay, develop a reading habit. If you do not have a reading habit, you are an effective illiterate. Okay, you can read something. Everybody can read something, of course. But if you don't have the habit of reading, essentially you are an illiterate, right? Because if you can't read and don't read, there's no difference, right? So I would strongly recommend, before you talk about all this innovation and this fancy stuff, the first innovation we should develop is a reading habit. Doesn't matter how much, how often, you just got to be
400 books?
Not so many. I mean, I can run, guys, I can run. But I have no running habit. So I'm not a runner. So I hope everybody can become a reader. Thank you.
Okay, for me, I think to tie it all up, try to move from the triple F fund, which is family, friends, and fools, and eventually get
Family, friends, and fools.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was literally an idea, right? Before, microLEAP was an idea, and thankfully now we are 5 years old. So, and hopefully grow to a much bigger audience. But, what's it called? Yeah, so to move from the triple F fund to eventually other people seeing what you can bring. So that's one. Of course, I guess also, again, to quote Axl Rose and Slash, you got to have appetite for destruction. So you have to be able, it's true, you have to be able to absorb hits and look, and again, it's, other than the obvious elephant in the room of funding to keep you going, it's about trying to see where your value market fit, as I said earlier, where that will actually keep your business sustainable. I think that's the most important. Even helping these MSMEs, the whole point of helping them grow is for them to sustain. So that's the main message for me.
Thank you.
3 M's, and I love my alliteration. First one, minimum viable product, MVP. Always identify, and this is part of experimentation, within the complex innovation you want to do, what is the least, smallest, good enough, get out to market, test it, iterate, come back. And the reason you want to do this, not for all the obvious reasons you can read in the blog, is momentum. Momentum is very critical to sustaining all the wonderful mindsets that we have discussed. And as a leader, it is your sole responsibility to make sure that everything moves in the direction you want it to go, right? So first one, MVP. Second one, momentum. Third one, boring but critical, maintenance. Who has been caught in MRTs not working? I think we can be so sold on the shiny stories of innovation that we are not allocating enough resources, enough time, enough attention to make sure that the most basic things, the infrastructure that keeps your business going, is working. And that is maintenance, guys. So 3 M's. I'm sorry, what, 3 M's?
MVP.
Great, thank you, that's it.
All right, let's give our panel one more round of applause. Certainly, it's been a very insightful, we've uncovered many gems. Think big, keep failing, develop a reading habit, come up with an appetite for destruction, and of course, the 3 M's, minimum viable product, momentum, and maintenance. Let's give our panel one more round of applause before we wrap up today. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a photo. Don't jump off the stage, huh? No need to innovate.